I was banished from my village after this. I was completely banned from entering the village. I had decided to leave, but I promised myself that I would make my stepmother pay for what she did. So one night, I crept into the village and into our compound to find her. Unbeknownst to me, she had also prepared for my possible attack. She had planted something just by the entrance of her hut, which I stood on. They were mandrake roots buried just by her door. They were meant to kill me. I heard her say this to me the moment I stood on them, but instead they roused the witch instinct in me. Suddenly I was consumed by an overwhelming desire for blood, for human flesh. On an impulse, I struck her as she laughed wickedly at me. I consumed her with so much rage, tearing through her like a rag figure. I became stronger and faster than I had ever imagined, and my craving for blood and human flesh grew stronger and stronger. I could feel what was happening to me but could not control it. I was becoming dangerous, and if not for the sound of a crying baby who lay on the mattress, I probably would have ravaged through my whole family and the village. But despite my intense cravings, I still did not want to hurt anyone in my family. Therefore, as I turned about to leave, I sensed there was someone else in my stepmother's hut hiding. It was the same man I had bumped into the morning of my father's death. Suddenly, I had a vision of what really happened that morning. The male voices I heard arguing were that of my father and the man standing before me. He was arguing with father over my stepmother as they were having an affair. As an elder of the village, father threatened to make the man pay for daring to sleep with his wife, which was why the fight started, with both bringing out their daggers to each other. However, the man was the one that ended up stabbing him to death. I was filled with such anger at that realization that I struck him across the face. I was just about to pounce on him to eat him up when I heard screams coming from the compound. I grabbed his lifeless body and ran into the forest. When I was deep into the forest, I realized that the body I carried was that of a cereburu. It all finally made sense to me, how he dared to kill father and get away with impunity. I was even more enraged at how easily I ended his life, but I decided not to eat him. I decided to keep his body instead as a reminder of that fateful day. The comfort I felt watching his carcass desiccate was redemptive. That was when my life as a witch I am today began. That day was the last interaction I had with humans. All I did ever since was hunt them down to feed on them. I lived mindlessly since then, until you came along. As tempting as you were and still are to me, I'd rather not make you my meal. She saw a smile grow on Kubra's beautiful face as she said this. Rest assured, I would rather die than harm you. Kubra listened as she continued. But the first time I caught your scent, I wanted to have you and your baby. I thought you'll be the perfect sacrifice for the coming full moon. I had never gotten the chance to present a sacrifice since joining the witch's cult, and you presented me with the perfect opportunity to rectify that. But when I found you, to my dismay, you were protected by some spirit, a powerful one, and when I saw this, I wanted nothing to do with you. That was why I drove you away from me and my hut, even though I knew you were troubled. Because believe me, your trouble was nothing compared to what we would have done to you. But you were so stubborn, and even your apparent fear for me was not enough to keep you away. You were determined to stay even after I attempted to scare you by assuming my dreadful witch form. On hindsight, I think your determination reminded me of myself when I was a kid in my village, of how I fought to stay in the village with all the disruptions and discriminations. There seemed to be nothing I could do to scare you away, and seeing your courageous resolve to staying with me, I slowly warmed up to your presence, especially when you held my arm and told me you trusted me. I think that was my undoing. I was suddenly engulfed with an overpowering desire to protect you. Kubra smiled to that while she reflected on the story she just heard. She expressed her sympathy over what the witch had been through and for all the trouble she had caused her. What spirit is that, the one you saw protecting me? Kubra asked, curious about the guardian spirit she had never seen. He is the spirit watching over you and your baby. It seems to me that he is around you for the sake of your unborn child. Upon hearing this, Kubra felt a presence around them in the cave. It was like a rush of the wind, which was followed by an eerie stillness. She had felt this same presence before when she was being chased by the queen's men. There were moments while Kubra was in the outlying villages when she knew she could have been caught by the queen's guards, but for some strange reason she wasn't. Somehow she had always felt like she was being watched, but she had disregarded the thought as she believed it was probably just her imagination. Now, after hearing what Lalia had just said, Kubra now knew it was not just her paranoia. This made her feel that there must be something special about the child she was carrying. Your baby seems to have a great destiny awaiting her. It seems to me that Akwala's mission is to see her live to fulfill her destiny. Lalia elaborated, sensing that Kubra was now overflowing with many questions. Kubra instinctively had her hand over her belly, rubbing on it as if to connect with her unborn child. So it is a girl, she sighed. She continued holding her belly. Lalia could not understand why Kubra looked sad even after finding out her baby's gender. A great destiny, you say? What destiny could that be? Kubra continued her interrogation. This destiny that Lalia claims await her unborn child makes her wonder. She was now pondering over what type of destiny could await a child of a slave born in such gruesome circumstances. Lalia did not have much to say about the child's destiny as she herself knew very little. A great destiny, but I'm sorry, I cannot tell you much about it. I wish I knew what that destiny was, but I don't. All I know is that there is a very powerful spirit protecting your child. Lalia almost concluded, but her mind suddenly went onto something. The baby's father, who is he? She asked, also curious about the slave girl's story. He was one of the royal guards in Tongo, Kubra immediately replied. Was? Is he not alive? Lalia asked, wondering why she could not see much into the girl's past on her own. He died trying to run away with me. I hated him with all my heart. I didn't even know him much. I only knew that his name is Butler Tito and that he raped me to get me pregnant so he can marry me. And for that I hated him. The queen had ordered for me to be killed by the morning, and on learning that, he risked his life to save my life. That is when my opinion of him changed. I can still remember his last moments as he was willing me to run away. Kubra had tears in her eyes now. I wish I had known him better since that day, but that was not meant to be. His dying moment is all I would ever see of him forever. Kubra was crying now. She was sad about everything. Lalia now understood why Kubra was not happy about knowing her baby's gender. She felt so sorry for her and she tried comforting her. Sometimes bad things happen and there is nothing we can do about it. Imagine all the dark phases of life I went through, she said as she wrapped her arms around her. I'd give anything to know the father of my unborn child. I cannot forget how deeply I hated him, but I would give anything to know him, Kubra cried. She realized that he was the only person close to a relative, especially considering she lost both her parents at a very tender age. She was sobbing so heavily at this point and Lalia hated seeing her this distressed. She regretted asking her about her child's father. All she wanted to do was find more information about her to help her understand why the spirit was so protective of her child. As they sat comforting each other, their peace was suddenly interrupted by the arrival of the three witches, the same ones they were running away from. Kubra got scared at the sight that she immediately drew closer to Lalia, who reassured her not to panic. They cannot see or hear us, Lalia quietly whispered with a smirk on her face. I can't believe I used their own spell against them. They are undoubtedly regretting every minute they spent showing me how to recite their incantations. Kubra watched as the witches angrily looked around. Lalia was right. They were cursing each other for showing Lalia the disappearing incantations. As long as we do not use any item from this cave, they cannot see or hear us, Lalia told her. It was like they lived in different worlds. They both could, however, hear one of the witches' voice echo. The priest is aware of our presence here in the forest, and he is determined to get rid of us. You know, without sacrifice on a full moon, we will not be as vulnerable as we are right now. They were still obsessed with having Kubra and her baby for sacrifice. Lalia could tell they will not stop at nothing. What priest is that? Kubra asked. Our worst enemy, Kunja. He is the royal priest of Kingdom Jeli. He is nothing short of a royal pain in the neck. He has made our lives here a living hell. Lalia could care less about that right now, as she was sure that they were making that up. She urged Kubra to stay calm as the witches walked out, still cursing each other. After the witches left, she decided to go outside to look for food. As she left, she turned to a scared Kubra and said, "No matter what you do not touch or use a thing in or outside the cave." Kubra could see the witches had grown some edible plants everywhere, so they would just be tempted to have people eat them when they got hungry. Lalia had elaborated comprehensively that it was a trap, set to alert them of any human presence in their cave. As tempting as the fruits were, Kubra willed herself to look away.